The night air felt unusually cold as Special Agent Tanya Wilson drove home from the FBI field office. The digital clock on her dashboard read 11:23 p.m. Her shoulders ached from sitting at her desk for 14 hours straight, working on a human trafficking case that had consumed her life for the past 3 months. All she wanted now was a hot shower and her bed. The flash of red and blue lights in her rearview mirror made her heart sink. Tanya checked her speedometer. She'd been going exactly 5 miles under the limit, careful as always. She hadn't changed lanes without signaling or rolled through any stop signs. With a deep sigh, she pulled over to the shoulder of the empty suburban road and put her car in park. "Just what I needed to end this day," she muttered, reaching for her purse to get her license and registration. As she did, she also pulled out her FBI credentials, placing them on top of her wallet where they would be clearly visible. Tanya rolled down her window and placed both hands on the steering wheel, a habit ingrained from years of law enforcement training and, sadly, from being a black woman who knew the rules of survival during traffic stops. The beam of a flashlight swept across her face as the officer approached. She squinted against the harsh light but kept her expression neutral. "License and registration," demanded a gruff voice before the officer even reached her window. "Good evening, officer," Tanya said calmly. "May I ask why I was pulled over?" The flashlight beam moved to her hands, then to the FBI credentials sitting on top of her wallet. "I said license and registration," the officer repeated, his tone hardening. "And what's this supposed to be?" He gestured toward her credentials with obvious skepticism. "I'm Special Agent Tanya Wilson with the FBI," she explained, her voice steady and professional. "I'm just heading home from the field office downtown. Here's my identification." The officer, whose nameplate read Lawson, scoffed. He was a stocky man in his 40s with a crew cut and deep-set eyes that narrowed as he examined her credentials. "FBI, huh?" Officer Lawson said with unmistakable disbelief. "That's a new one." Tanya felt a familiar knot forming in her stomach. She'd been here before, not just as an agent, but long before she joined the bureau. The dismissive tone, the immediate suspicion, the implied accusation that she was lying about who she was. "My credentials are authentic, Officer Lawson," she said. "You're welcome to call the field office to verify my identity." "Step out of the vehicle," Lawson ordered, ignoring her suggestion. "I'd like to know why I was pulled over first," Tanya insisted politely. "I don't believe I violated any traffic laws." Lawson's face hardened. "I said get out of the car now." Tanya took a slow, deep breath. 10 years with the Bureau, leading major investigations, and still moments like this. She reached for her phone on the passenger seat. "I'm going to record this interaction," she informed him, keeping her voice level, "and I'm requesting a supervisor at the scene." Officer Lawson's hand moved to his holster. A subtle gesture, but one Tanya recognized immediately. "Put the phone down and exit the vehicle," he said through clenched teeth. Tanya's training kicked in. She needed to de-escalate while protecting herself. She turned on her phone's recording function and placed it on the dashboard where it would capture what happened next. "Officer Lawson," she said clearly for the recording, "I am Special Agent Tanya Wilson of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I have identified myself and shown you my credentials. I have not been informed why I was pulled over. I am concerned about your request for me to exit the vehicle without explanation." A car drove past, slowing briefly as the driver noticed the police lights. Tanya felt a small measure of relief. Witnesses might help keep the situation from spiraling. Lawson leaned closer to the window. "Listen here," he said, his voice low but intense. "I don't care who you claim to be. In this town, when an officer gives you an order, you follow it. We've had reports of people impersonating federal agents, so either you step out now or I'll have to remove you myself." The threat hung in the air between them. Tanya weighed her options carefully. She could comply, knowing that leaving the safety of her vehicle might put her at greater risk, or she could stand her ground and potentially face a forceful removal. "Officer," she tried again, "I understand you're doing your job, but I am a federal agent and I'm asking you to follow proper procedure. Please call for your supervisor and we can sort this out professionally." Lawson's face flushed red. "Last warning," he growled. In that moment, Tanya noticed something that made her blood run cold. Lawson's body camera, standard issue for all officers in this district, was not activated. The small indicator light that should have been glowing wasn't there. She made a quick decision. "I'll step out," she said, "but I want to note that your body camera appears to be off, and I'll be maintaining my own recording of this interaction. As she carefully opened the door, Tanya kept her movements slow and deliberate. She stood up straight, her FBI jacket clearly visible now in the glow of the streetlight. "Keep your hands where I can see them," Lawson ordered, taking a step back. Another patrol car pulled up behind Lawson's vehicle, its headlights illuminating the scene. Tanya felt a wave of relief. Maybe this was the supervisor she'd requested. A younger officer stepped out, approaching with caution. "Everything okay here, Lawson?" he called out. "Just dealing with someone claiming to be FBI," Lawson replied without taking his eyes off Tanya. "Says her name is Wilson." The younger officer, nameplate reading Chen, moved closer, his expression changing as he got a better look at Tanya. "Wait, Special Agent Wilson?" Officer Chen said, recognition dawning on his face. "From the Jackson County Task Force?" Tanya nodded, maintaining her professional demeanor despite her racing heart. "Yes, Officer Chen. We worked together on the cross-jurisdictional drug trafficking operation last spring." Lawson's expression flickered between confusion and disbelief. "Sir," Chen said to Lawson, lowering his voice slightly, "Agent Wilson led the joint operation between our department and the FBI. She's definitely who she says she is." The tension in Lawson's posture didn't completely dissolve, but something shifted in his eyes. A realization, perhaps, or the first inkling of doubt about his own actions. "I still need to see your license and registration," he insisted, though his tone had lost some of its edge. "Of course," Tanya replied, reaching slowly back into her car to retrieve the documents. As she handed them over, she noticed more cars slowing down as they passed. A couple had even pulled over across the street, passengers holding up phones. The knot in her stomach tightened. This was becoming exactly the kind of scene she'd hoped to avoid. Officer Chen stepped closer to Lawson. "Maybe we should continue this conversation away from the roadside," he suggested quietly. Lawson ignored him, scrutinizing Tanya's license with exaggerated care. "This address current?" he asked sharply. "Yes, it is," Tanya confirmed. "And what brings an FBI agent to our neighborhood at this hour?" The question came loaded with suspicion. "As I mentioned, I'm heading home from work," Tanya explained patiently. "The field office is downtown. I live 20 minutes from here." More patrol cars arrived, their lights creating a dizzying display of red and blue against the dark street. A senior officer emerged from one of them, walking briskly toward the scene. "What's the situation here?" the newcomer asked. The name on his uniform read, Captain Reynolds. Before Lawson could answer, Officer Chen spoke up. "Sir, this is Special Agent Wilson from the FBI. There seems to have been some confusion during the traffic stop." Captain Reynolds looked at Tanya, then at her FBI jacket and the credentials still visible in her hand. Recognition crossed his face immediately. "Agent Wilson," he said with a nod, "I believe we met at the department coordination meeting last month. Is everything all right here?" "There's been a misunderstanding, Captain," Tanya said, her voice calm but firm. "I was pulled over without explanation, asked to exit my vehicle without cause, and Officer Lawson's body camera appears to be turned off. I've been recording our interaction for everyone's protection." Reynolds' expression darkened as he turned to Lawson. "Is this accurate, officer?" Lawson shifted uncomfortably. "I had reason to believe—" "We'll discuss this back at the station," Reynolds cut him off. He turned back to Tanya. "Agent Wilson, I apologize for any inconvenience. You're free to go unless you'd like to file a formal complaint now." Tanya looked at Lawson, whose face had become an unreadable mask. She thought about all the people who'd been in her position without a badge to protect them, without other officers recognizing them, without the privilege of being let go with an apology. "I'll be following up officially through the proper channels," she said. "And, Captain, I'd like to request the dashcam footage from Officer Lawson's vehicle as well." Reynolds nodded. "Of course. We'll preserve all evidence." As Tanya returned to her car, she could feel Lawson's eyes burning into her back. The night that had started with simple exhaustion had turned into something much more complicated. This wouldn't end here. Not for her. And hopefully not for Lawson or the department. Her hands trembled slightly as she started the engine. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind a familiar weight of anger, sadness, and determination. Tomorrow would bring paperwork, interviews, and difficult conversations. But tonight had reminded her exactly why she'd joined the Bureau in the first place. to make change from within a system that desperately needed it. As she drove away from the flashing lights, Tanya knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning. Sleep didn't come easily to Tanya that night. She tossed and turned, replaying the traffic stop in her mind. By morning, her determination had hardened. She wouldn't let this incident be brushed aside like so many others. After a quick shower and strong coffee, she called her supervisor, Assistant Director Rivera. "I need to report an incident," Tanya said when Rivera answered. 20 minutes later, she had explained everything. Rivera listened without interrupting, then sighed heavily. "I wish I could say I'm surprised," he said. "Are you okay to come in today? I can give you personal time if you need it." "I'm coming in," Tanya replied firmly. "But I want this on record. All of it. It will be. I'll set up a meeting with Internal Affairs and our legal team this afternoon. And Tanya, document everything while it's fresh." After hanging up, Tanya sat at her kitchen table and wrote down every detail she could remember from the night before. The way Lawson's hand had hovered near his weapon, the exact words he'd used. The moment Officer Chen recognized her, she knew from experience how important these details would be. Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from her friend Layla, a lieutenant with the county sheriff's office. "You okay? Hearing chatter about something going down with you in Oakwood PD last night. Word traveled fast in law enforcement circles." Tanya texted back that she was fine and would call later. As she got ready for work, a news alert popped up on her phone. Her stomach dropped when she read the headline. Confrontation between FBI agent and local police caught on camera. Someone had posted a video. Of course they had. By the time Tanya reached the FBI field office, the video had been viewed over 50,000 times. She hurried through the lobby, avoiding eye contact with colleagues who clearly recognized her from the footage. Assistant Director Rivera met her at the elevator. "My office," he said quietly. Inside his office, Rivera gestured to a chair across from his desk. "The video doesn't show the beginning of the stop, but it captured enough. Our public affairs team is already getting calls." "What's the official response?" Tanya asked. "That we're investigating the incident and supporting our agent." The Oakwood Police Department issued a statement saying Officer Lawson has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Tanya nodded. "Standard procedure." "There's something else," Rivera added, his expression grim. "We did some digging on Officer Lawson. Thomas Lawson, 15 years with Oakwood PD. There have been 6 formal complaints of excessive force or racial profiling against him in the past 3 years. All were dismissed for insufficient evidence." "So I'm just the latest," Tanya said, her voice tight. "But unlike the others, you have the full weight of the Bureau behind you. And you know how to work the system from the inside." The meeting with Internal Affairs lasted 2 hours. Tanya went through her statement multiple times, answering the same questions repeatedly as they looked for inconsistencies. There were none to find. By late afternoon, she felt drained but resolved. As she headed to her desk, her phone rang with an unknown number. "Special Agent Wilson," she answered. "Agent Wilson, this is Captain Reynolds from Oakwood PD. We spoke last night." Tanya tensed. "Yes, Captain. What can I do for you?" "I wanted to update you personally. Officer Lawson's dashcam footage has been secured, as well as Officer Chen's body camera recording. I've reviewed both. They corroborate your account completely. And Officer Lawson's body camera?" Reynolds sighed. "He claims it malfunctioned. We're investigating that claim." "Of course he does," Tanya said, unable to keep the edge from her voice. "There's more," Reynolds continued. "In light of the video circulating online and our preliminary investigation, Chief Thompson would like to meet with you. Tomorrow, if possible." Tanya considered this. Meeting with the police chief this quickly was unusual. "I'll need to clear it with my supervisor," she said finally. "Understood. Please let me know what works. And Agent Wilson? For what it's worth, I'm sorry this happened." After hanging up, Tanya stared at her phone. Apologies were easy. Real change was what mattered. As she drove home that evening, she took a different route, avoiding the spot where she'd been pulled over. The weight of the day pressed down on her. She'd spent her career fighting for justice, and now she found herself at the center of the very kind of case she investigated. Her phone rang through her car speakers. It was Layla. "I saw the video," Layla said without preamble. "That's messed up, Tanya." "Yeah," Tanya agreed, too tired for more words. "The thin blue line is already forming around Lawson," Layla warned. Some of the guys are saying you were argumentative, that you escalated the situation. Of course they are, Tanya said, anger cutting through her exhaustion. Did they miss the part where he refused to tell me why he pulled me over? Or when he threatened to remove me from my vehicle? I'm just telling you what's being said. You know how this goes. They protect their own. Tanya gripped the steering wheel tighter. Not this time. After the call, she stopped at a grocery store to pick up dinner. As she walked through the aisles, she felt eyes on her. A young cashier whispered to her coworker as Tanya approached the checkout. "You're her, right?" the cashier asked as she scanned Tanya's items. "From the video." "The FBI lady?" Tanya nodded warily. "My brother got pulled over by that same cop last month," the cashier said, lowering her voice. "Treated him just like that. But nobody believed him when he complained. You're gonna make that officer pay, right?" The weight of responsibility pressed down harder. "I'm going to make sure there's a fair investigation," Tanya said carefully. The next morning, Tanya met with Assistant Director Rivera before heading to the Oakwood Police Department headquarters. They agreed on a strategy, professional but unyielding. This wasn't just about one traffic stop. It was about a pattern of behavior that needed to end. The police station was a modern brick building with American and state flags flapping in the morning breeze. As Tanya approached the entrance, she spotted a small group of protesters on the sidewalk. Some held signs that read "Justice for Agent Wilson" and "End Police Racism Now." A reporter thrust a microphone toward her. "Agent Wilson, do you believe Officer Lawson should be fired?" Tanya kept walking, her face a mask of professional composure. Inside, an officer led her to a conference room where Chief Thompson waited with Captain Reynolds and a woman in a smart pantsuit. "Agent Wilson," Chief Thompson said, standing to shake her hand. "Thank you for coming. This is Diane Okafor, our department's legal counsel." The lawyer nodded, her expression neutral. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." They all sat down around the conference table. Chief Thompson, a tall man with salt and pepper hair and deep lines around his eyes, leaned forward. "I want to start by apologizing for Officer Lawson's conduct," he said. "It was unacceptable and does not reflect the values of this department." Tanya kept her expression professional. "I appreciate that, Chief, but I think we both know this isn't an isolated incident." Thompson's jaw tightened slightly. "We take all allegations of misconduct seriously. 6 complaints in 3 years, Tanya cut in. "All dismissed. That suggests a pattern, wouldn't you agree?" The room fell silent. Captain Reynolds looked down at his hands. The lawyer shifted in her seat. "We're conducting a thorough investigation," Thompson said finally. "Officer Lawson will remain on administrative leave until it's complete." "And then what?" Tanya pressed. "Another slap on the wrist? More retraining that doesn't change anything." The lawyer cleared her throat. "Agent Wilson, we asked for this meeting to discuss a resolution that would satisfy all parties." Tanya raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "The department is prepared to issue a formal apology," Okafor continued. "Officer Lawson will undergo comprehensive sensitivity training and will implement additional body camera compliance measures for all officers." "That's not enough," Tanya said flatly. "We understand you may be considering legal action," Okafor said, her tone carefully neutral. "The department is open to discussing." "This isn't about money," Tanya interrupted. "It's about making sure what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else. I want a complete review of all complaints against Officer Lawson. I want the body camera malfunction investigated as potential tampering with evidence. And I want an independent review of your department's handling of racial profiling complaints." Chief Thompson's face reddened. "That's beyond the scope of—" "It's either that," Tanya said, "or I take this to the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division." "Your choice." The tension in the room thickened. Tanya knew she was pushing hard, but also knew this moment, with the video viral and public attention focused, might be the only chance to create real change. Captain Reynolds broke the silence. "She's right, Chief. We need to do better." Thompson looked at his captain, then back at Tanya. Something shifted in his expression. Resignation, perhaps, or the beginning of understanding. "I'll need to discuss this with the mayor and city council," he said slowly. "Do that," Tanya replied, standing up. "I'll expect your response by the end of the week." As she walked out of the police station, the weight on her shoulders felt different, not lighter exactly, but more purposeful. The protesters cheered as she emerged. The reporters called out questions. Tanya kept walking, her head high. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Rivera. "How did it go?" She typed back, "They offered the usual." I demanded more. "This is just the beginning." Inside his patrol car parked across the street, Officer Lawson watched Tanya leave the station. His face was tense, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. For the first time in his career, he was facing consequences he couldn't avoid, and somewhere deep down, past the anger and defensiveness, a small voice was asking uncomfortable questions about who he was and what he had become. 3 days after her meeting with Chief Thompson, Tanya sat in her living room, scrolling through news articles about the incident. The story had spread beyond local coverage to national outlets. The video had over 2 million views now. Her phone rang. It was Assistant Director Rivera. "They're caving," he said without preamble. "The mayor just called our director." "Oakwood PD has agreed to all your demands." Tanya sat up straighter. "All of them? Even the independent review? They're bringing in an outside agency from the state capitol to review all racial profiling complaints from the past 5 years. And they're fast-tracking the investigation into Lawson." A wave of satisfaction washed over Tanya, quickly followed by caution. They wouldn't agree so easily unless they're feeling serious pressure. "Oh, they are," Rivera confirmed. "The mayor's office has been flooded with calls. Community leaders are demanding action. And 3 more people have come forward with similar stories about Lawson in the past 2 days." Tanya closed her eyes briefly. 3 more people. How many others had stayed silent? "There's something else," Rivera continued. "The chief wants to meet with you again. Privately this time. Why? He didn't say. But my guess, they want this to go away as quietly as possible now." Tanya considered this. "I'll meet him. But not at the station. Somewhere neutral. I'll set it up. And Tanya, be careful. You've become the face of something bigger than one traffic stop." After hanging up, Tanya walked to her window and looked out at the quiet neighborhood street. Becoming the face of anything had never been her goal. She joined the FBI to work behind the scenes to fight for justice within the system. Now she found herself thrust into the spotlight, carrying the weight of others' hopes and fears. Her doorbell rang, startling her. Through the peephole, she saw a delivery person holding a large bouquet of flowers. She opened the door cautiously. "Delivery for Agent Wilson," the young man said, consulting his clipboard. Tanya took the flowers and closed the door, searching for a card. She found it nestled among yellow roses and white lilies. "Thank you for your courage." From the Turner family. The name wasn't familiar. Then she remembered. Turner was the last name of the grocery store cashier whose brother had been pulled over by Lawson. Word really had gotten around. Over the next 2 days, Tanya received 7 more bouquets, 3 handwritten letters, and countless emails forwarded from the FBI's public address. Some shared similar experiences with police. Others simply offered support. A few criticized her for attacking law enforcement. She read them all. Chief Thompson suggested meeting at a coffee shop halfway between the FBI office and the police station. Tanya arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a table in the corner with a clear view of the entrance. The chief arrived exactly on time, dressed in plain clothes rather than his uniform. Without the authoritative outfit, he looked older, more tired. He ordered coffee before joining her. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," he said, settling into the chair across from her. Tanya nodded but said nothing, waiting for him to continue. Thompson took a sip of his coffee. "I've been chief for 8 years," he began. "Started as a beat cop 30 years ago. I've seen a lot of changes in how we police, some good, some—" He trailed off, then refocused. "What I'm trying to say is I thought we were doing better. I convinced myself the occasional complaint was just part of the job." "It's not," Tanya said simply. "No, it's not." Thompson met her gaze directly. "I've spent the past week reviewing Officer Lawson's record myself. Not just the formal complaints, everything. Traffic stops, arrests, citations. The pattern is undeniable." Tanya felt a flicker of surprise at his frankness. "I failed," Thompson continued. "As his supervisor, as chief, I failed to see what was happening right under my nose. Or maybe I didn't want to see it." "Why are you telling me this?" Tanya asked. Thompson leaned forward. "Because I want you to know that what you're doing, forcing us to confront this, it matters. The independent review will happen. But I'm not waiting for their report to make changes." "What kind of changes?" Mandatory body camera reviews for all officers with any complaints. New guidelines for traffic stops. And we're reopening every case where Lawson's conduct was questioned. Tanya studied his face, looking for signs of insincerity. She found none. What about Lawson himself? She asked. Thompson's expression hardened slightly. He's fighting the suspension. Police unions backing him, claiming there's no clear evidence of misconduct. There's video, Tanya pointed out, which his lawyer argues doesn't show the entire interaction. Look, I'll be straight with you. Firing him won't be easy, but I'm prepared to push for it if the investigation confirms what I already suspect. Tanya sipped her tea, considering her next words carefully. This isn't just about one officer, Chief. It's about a culture that protects people like him. I know, Thompson admitted. And changing culture is a lot harder than changing one person's behavior. But we have to start somewhere. As they continued talking, Tanya was struck by the Chief's apparent sincerity. Was it possible he truly hadn't recognized the extent of the problem? Or was this just damage control now that the spotlight was on his department? Their meeting lasted nearly an hour. As they prepared to leave, Thompson handed her a business card with his personal cell number written on the back. If you hear anything more from people who've had encounters with Lawson or any of my officers, I want to know, he said. Directly from you. Tanya took the card, nodding. I appreciate that, Chief, but trust is earned. I'll be watching what happens next very closely. I'd expect nothing less, Agent Wilson. When Tanya returned to work the next day, she found a group of colleagues waiting by her desk. Agent Diaz, a veteran field agent she'd worked with on several cases, stepped forward. We wanted you to know we've got your back, he said. Whatever you need. The others nodded in agreement. Tanya felt a lump form in her throat. Thank you, she said simply. Later that afternoon, Rivera called her into his office. I just got word from Captain Reynolds, he said. They've finished reviewing the dash cam footage from Lawson's previous traffic stops. And? Tanya asked, though she already suspected the answer. Statistical pattern of targeting Black and Latino drivers, extended stops without probable cause, selective enforcement. Rivera shook his head. It's all there. They're moving to terminate him. Tanya exhaled slowly. It felt like the first real breath she'd taken in days. He'll appeal, she said. The union will back him all the way. Probably, Rivera agreed. But with the evidence they have now, plus your case, plus the others coming forward, it's not looking good for him. That evening, as Tanya drove home, she took the same route where she'd been pulled over. As she passed the spot, she felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger at what had happened, satisfaction at the changes already in motion, and a nagging worry that it wouldn't be enough. Her phone buzzed with a text from Layla. Heard they're firing Lawson. You made this happen. Tanya didn't reply immediately. Had she made it happen? Or had she simply been in the wrong place at the right time? A federal agent with the power and platform to do what ordinary citizens couldn't. As she pulled into her driveway, a news alert popped up on her phone. Officer involved in FBI agent traffic stop facing termination. Community activists call for broader reforms. Inside her house, Tanya kicked off her shoes and sank onto the couch. Her phone buzzed again with another text, this time from an unknown number. This isn't over. She stared at the message, a chill running through her. Was it a threat? From Lawson? From someone else in the department who resented her for speaking up? She forwarded the message to Rivera, then to Captain Reynolds. Better to be cautious. Her doorbell rang, making her jump. Through the peephole, she saw a middle-aged black woman she didn't recognize, standing alone on her porch. Who is it? Tanya called through the door. My name is Vanessa Taylor, the woman answered. My son was arrested by Officer Lawson last year. He's still in jail for something he didn't do. I heard about what you're doing and... Her voice cracked. I need your help. Tanya closed her eyes briefly. This was only the beginning. The ripple effects of challenging one officer's behavior would reach further than she'd imagined. Lives like this woman's sons hung in the balance. She opened the door. Come in, Mrs. Taylor. Tell me everything. Across town, Officer Thomas Lawson sat alone in his darkened living room, a half-empty bottle of whiskey on the coffee table in front of him. The TV news played silently, showing his police photo alongside Tanya's official FBI headshot. The words pending termination flashed across the screen. His phone had been ringing all day, colleagues offering support, the union representative updating him on the appeal process, reporters seeking comment. He'd stopped answering hours ago. For the first time in his 15-year career, Thomas Lawson was facing real consequences. And somewhere deep in his mind, past the anger and defensiveness, past the whiskey haze, a small voice was asking, what if they're right about me? Vanessa Taylor's story kept Tanya awake long after the woman left her house. Her son Andre had been pulled over by Officer Lawson for a broken taillight. Somehow that routine stop had escalated into charges of resisting arrest and possession of narcotics, drugs that Vanessa swore her son had never touched. Andre was now serving a 3-year sentence based largely on Lawson's testimony. No body camera footage existed from the incident. According to Lawson's report, the camera had malfunctioned, the same excuse he'd used during Tanya's stop. By morning, Tanya had made up her mind. She called Rivera as soon as she arrived at the office. I need to look into an old case, she explained, outlining Andre Taylor's situation. Rivera frowned. That's not exactly federal jurisdiction, Tanya, and you've already got plenty on your plate. This is connected to Lawson, she insisted. Same pattern. Conveniently malfunctioning body camera, escalating a minor traffic stop, targeting a black driver. If we're building a case against him, this matters. Rivera studied her for a long moment, then nodded. I'll see what strings I can pull. But be careful. You're walking a fine line between professional interest and personal crusade. Tanya spent the next few days diving into Andre Taylor's case file, which Rivera had managed to obtain from the county prosecutor's office. The more she read, the more her suspicions grew. The case against Andre was flimsy at best, relying heavily on Lawson's account and a field drug test known for false positives. On Friday afternoon, Tanya's desk phone rang. Agent Wilson? This is Thomas Lawson. Tanya froze, her hand tightening on the receiver. Officer Lawson. How did you get this number? Does it matter? His voice sounded rough, tired. We need to talk. I don't think that's appropriate while you're under investigation, Tanya replied carefully. Please. The word sounded strange coming from him, almost desperate. Not at the station. Not at your office. Somewhere public. Tanya's instincts told her to refuse, but curiosity won out. The coffee shop on Main Street. 4 o'clock. I'll be at a table in the window and I won't be alone. Fine. He hung up without another word. Tanya immediately called Captain Reynolds to inform him of the contact. Then she asked Agent Diaz to accompany her to the meeting. You really think he'd try something? Diaz asked as they drove to the coffee shop. Probably not. But he's facing the end of his career. People get desperate. They arrived early, choosing a table with clear sightlines to all entrances. At exactly 4 o'clock, Lawson walked in. He looked different out of uniform. Smaller somehow, his shoulders hunched, dark circles under his eyes. He spotted Tanya and approached, barely glancing at Diaz. Thank you for meeting me, he said, sitting down across from them. Tanya said nothing, waiting. Lawson cleared his throat. They're going to fire me. Hearing's on Monday, but it's just a formality. I'm aware, Tanya replied evenly. I could fight it. The union's ready to back me all the way. He looked down at his hands. But I'm not going to. This caught Tanya off guard, though she hid her surprise. Why not? Lawson looked up, meeting her eyes directly. Because I watched the video, not just from your stop, but from my dash cam. And he swallowed hard. I didn't like what I saw. Silence fell over the table. Tanya exchanged a quick glance with Diaz. What exactly are you saying, Officer Lawson? She asked finally. I'm saying I've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of looking back, at my record, at how I've been policing. His voice grew quieter. I didn't see it before. Or maybe I didn't want to see it, but the numbers don't lie. No, they don't, Tanya agreed. I joined the force to help people. Somewhere along the way, I started seeing threats instead of citizens. Lawson ran a hand over his face. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve that. But there's something I need to tell you, something that might help others. Tanya leaned forward slightly. I'm listening. It's not just me, Lawson said. There's an unofficial group in the department. Not everyone, just a few officers. They call themselves the Old Guard. They target certain neighborhoods, certain drivers. They cover for each other when complaints come in. You're talking about organized racial profiling, Diaz said, speaking for the first time. Lawson nodded. It started small. Comments in the locker room. Tips about where to patrol if you wanted to boost your arrest numbers. Then it got more organized. They keep score. Actual points for different types of arrests. Tanya felt a cold anger building in her chest. Do you have proof? Some text messages. A few emails. And I kept the scorecards. Thought they were some kind of joke at first. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket and slid it across the table. I'm willing to testify about all of it. Tanya unfolded the paper. It was a crude spreadsheet with officers' names and points assigned for different categories of arrests. More points for drug charges, even more for resisting arrest, and the highest points for arrests in specific neighborhoods, all predominantly Black or Latino areas. Why are you doing this? Tanya asked, looking back at Lawson. Because I want to sleep at night again. His voice cracked slightly. And because there are people like Andre Taylor who don't deserve to be in prison based on lies. Tanya couldn't hide her shock this time. You know about Andre Taylor? I know about all of them, Lawson said quietly. Every false report I filed. Every time I claimed to smell marijuana when there was none. Every malfunctioning camera. He looked down at his hands again. I can give you names, dates, case numbers, everything. Tanya and Diaz exchanged glances again. If what Lawson was saying was true, this went far beyond one traffic stop or even one bad officer. This was systemic. Why should we believe you? Diaz asked. This could be some kind of play to save yourself. I'm not asking to save my job, Lawson replied. I don't deserve to wear the badge. But those other officers are still out there, still doing this every day, and people like Andre Taylor are paying the price. Tanya studied Lawson's face. The arrogance she'd seen during their traffic stop was gone, replaced by something that looked genuinely like remorse. Whether it was real or an act, his information could be valuable. We'll need everything in writing, she said finally. Official statement. And you'll have to be willing to testify, not just at your hearing, but potentially in court against your fellow officers. Lawson nodded. I understand. I'll do whatever it takes. As they left the coffee shop, Tanya's mind was racing. If Lawson was telling the truth, this could lead to real change. Not just in Oakwood PD, but potentially across other departments with similar problems. Do you believe him? Diaz asked as they walked to the car. I don't know, Tanya admitted, but we need to follow this wherever it leads. Back at the FBI office, Tanya and Diaz briefed Rivera on their meeting with Lawson. Rivera listened intently, his expression growing more concerned as they explained the old guard and the scoring system. This changes everything, he said when they finished. If we can prove this is happening, it's not just about individual complaints anymore. It's a civil rights investigation. We need to bring in the Justice Department, Tanya suggested. Rivera nodded. I'll make the calls. In the meantime, get Lawson's statement on record as soon as possible. People tend to get cold feet when they realize how much they're exposing themselves to. The next morning, Tanya received a text from Captain Reynolds. Lawson just resigned. Effective immediately. No hearing needed. An hour later, Lawson arrived at the FBI office looking even more haggard than the day before. He was escorted to an interview room where Tanya and two Justice Department attorneys waited. Still willing to go through with this? Tanya asked him. Lawson nodded. I turned in my badge this morning. Nothing left to lose now. For the next 4 hours, Lawson detailed years of systematic discrimination within the Oakwood Police Department. He named names, provided dates, described how the old guard maintained their influence despite changing policies and leadership. The attorneys recorded everything, occasionally stopping him to clarify details. When they finally took a break, Tanya followed Lawson to the hallway. There's something I need to ask you, she said. Why did you pull me over that night? The truth. Lawson was quiet for a moment. Your taillight wasn't out. There was no traffic violation. I saw a black woman driving an expensive car in a neighborhood where she didn't belong. That's it. That's the whole reason. He looked away, shame evident on his face. I've been doing it for years. But you were the first one who had the power to fight back effectively. Tanya absorbed this, the confirmation of what she'd already known. What about Andre Taylor? Did he really have drugs in his car? No, Lawson admitted. The field test gave a false positive on some protein powder. I knew it wasn't drugs, but I filed the report anyway. Tanya felt her anger rise again. He's serving 3 years because of your lie. I know. That's why I'm here now. Maybe it's too late for me to fix everything I've done, but it's not too late for him. The interviews continued for 2 more days. By Sunday evening, the Justice Department had enough evidence to launch a formal investigation into the Oakwood Police Department. Chief Thompson was informed that federal investigators would be arriving Monday morning. That night, Tanya called Vanessa Taylor. "We're looking into Andre's case," she told the woman. "I can't make any promises yet, but there's reason to believe his conviction might be overturned." Vanessa's sob of relief came through the phone clearly. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for believing us when no one else would." After hanging up, Tanya sat at her kitchen table, looking over her notes. This had begun with one traffic stop, one moment when she'd stood up for herself against an officer who abused his power. Now it had grown into something that might help dozens, perhaps hundreds of people who hadn't had the badge or platform to fight back. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rivera. "Press conference tomorrow. Justice Dept announcing full investigation. They want you there." Tanya took a deep breath. She'd never sought the spotlight, never wanted to be the face of this fight. But sometimes, she realized, the role chooses you. Across town, Thomas Lawson sat alone on a park bench watching the sunset. His police career was over, his reputation destroyed. Tomorrow, many of his former colleagues would learn he had betrayed them. Some might even threaten him. Yet despite everything, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. A strange lightness, as if a weight had been lifted. It wasn't forgiveness, he knew he hadn't earned that yet. But maybe it was the first step toward making amends for the damage he had done. 6 months later, Tanya stood in the back of a crowded courtroom, watching as Andre Taylor embraced his mother for the first time as a free man. The judge had just vacated his conviction, acknowledging the tainted evidence and misconduct that had put him behind bars. Andre wasn't the only one. Over the past months, the Justice Department's investigation had led to reviews of dozens of cases connected to Officer Lawson and the other members of the old guard. So far, 11 convictions had been overturned. Vanessa Taylor spotted Tanya and made her way through the crowd, pulling her son along. "This is her," Vanessa said, her eyes shining with tears. "This is the agent I told you about." Andre, tall and lean with the wary eyes of someone who'd been through too much, extended his hand. "Thank you," he said simply. "Mom told me everything you did." Tanya shook his hand. "I'm just glad the truth finally came out." "What happens next?" Andre asked. "For the officers who did this? 4 have been fired already," Tanya explained. 3 more are on administrative leave while the investigation continues. And 2 are facing criminal charges for evidence tampering and civil rights violations. What she didn't mention was the death threats she'd received. The suspicious car that had followed her home twice last week, or the brick thrown through her living room window with a note that read, "Traitor." Some police officers saw her as the enemy now, the outsider who had brought down their colleagues. As if reading her thoughts, Andre lowered his voice. "Be careful, Agent Wilson. Some people don't like what you're doing." "I know," Tanya replied, "but it's worth it for moments like this." Outside the courthouse, reporters had gathered. They called out questions as Tanya tried to slip past. "Agent Wilson, how many more cases do you expect to be overturned? Is it true that Officer Lawson is cooperating with federal prosecutors? What changes have been implemented at the Oakwood Police Department?" Tanya paused, knowing that her silence would only fuel speculation. "The Justice Department's investigation is ongoing," she said carefully. "But I can tell you that Chief Thompson has been working proactively to implement new training and accountability measures." This much was true. To everyone's surprise, Chief Thompson had emerged as an ally in reform efforts, publicly acknowledging the department's failures and pushing for change despite resistance from the police union and some veteran officers. "And what about Officer Lawson?" a reporter pressed. "Will he face criminal charges?" Tanya hesitated. Lawson's cooperation had been crucial to building cases against the old guard. Without his testimony, much of the misconduct might never have been proven. But he was still responsible for the harm he'd caused. "That decision lies with federal prosecutors," she answered diplomatically. "What matters most is that the system is being corrected, and people like Andre Taylor are getting justice." Back at the FBI office, Tanya found Assistant Director Rivera waiting by her desk. "Just saw the news about the Taylor case," he said. "Congratulations." "It's a start," Tanya replied. "But there's still so much more to do." Rivera nodded. "That's actually why I wanted to talk to you. The Bureau is forming a new civil rights enforcement team. We need agents who understand these issues from the inside, who can navigate the complexities of police reform while maintaining relationships with good officers. He paused. I've recommended you to lead it. Tanya looked up in surprise. Lead it? I'm not sure I'm qualified. You've done more in 6 months to address police misconduct than most agents do in their entire careers, Rivera said. You've shown you can be firm without burning bridges. Look at your relationship with Chief Thompson. He respects you even though you forced hard changes on his department. When would this start? Tanya asked, trying to process the offer. Next month. You'd be based here but traveling to departments across the region, building training programs, establishing accountability systems, creating channels for community oversight. The opportunity was unexpected but felt right. This was why she'd joined the FBI, to create change from within the system. I need to think about it, she said. Rivera smiled. Take the weekend. But for what it's worth, I think you're exactly what this team needs. That evening, Tanya met Layla for dinner at their favorite restaurant. They hadn't seen much of each other in recent months, both busy with their own cases. To justice, Layla said, raising her glass. And to my friend who wouldn't back down. Tanya smiled as they clinked glasses. It still doesn't feel real sometimes. All of this started with one traffic stop. That's usually how it happens, Layla observed. One moment where someone finally says enough. I've been offered a new position, Tanya said, changing the subject. Leading a civil rights enforcement team. You're taking it, right? Layla asked. I'm considering it. It would mean more travel, more time away from home. But also more opportunity to create real change, Layla pointed out. Imagine helping other departments implement reforms before they need a crisis to push them there. They continued talking, weighing the pros and cons. As they were finishing dessert, Tanya's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Can we talk? It's Thomas Lawson, Tanya frowned. She hadn't spoken directly with Lawson in months, though she knew he'd been cooperating with investigators. Everything okay? Layla asked. It's Lawson. He wants to meet. Layla raised an eyebrow. Are you going to? I'm not sure. Part of me never wants to see him again. But another part wants to know why he's reaching out now. After dinner, against perhaps her better judgment, Tanya texted Lawson back and agreed to meet him at a public park the next morning. She arrived early, choosing a bench near the playground where families gathered on Saturday mornings. Safety in numbers. Lawson arrived precisely on time, looking different than she remembered. He'd lost weight, and his hair had grown longer. He wore jeans and a plain sweater, civilian clothes that still seemed foreign on him. Thank you for meeting me, he said, sitting on the far end of the bench. What do you want, Lawson? Tanya asked directly. He took a deep breath. I heard about Andre Taylor's release. That's 11 now, right? 11 convictions overturned? Tanya nodded. There will be more, Lawson continued. I've been working with the Public Defender's Office going through old cases. We've identified at least 20 more with similar patterns. Is that why you wanted to meet? To tell me about more cases? Lawson shook his head. No. I wanted to tell you that I'm starting a program for former officers to speak at the police academy. About bias, about misconduct, about the slippery slope from cutting corners to full-blown corruption. He paused. I thought you should know. Tanya studied him. Why does it matter what I think? Because none of this would have happened without you, Lawson replied simply. You could have let it go after that night. Filed a complaint, moved on. But you pushed. You demanded real change, and you were right to do it. A group of children ran past, laughing as they chased a soccer ball. Tanya watched them for a moment before responding. I appreciate you telling me, she said finally. It won't erase what happened to Andre Taylor or the others. But it's a start. Lawson nodded, understanding the limited nature of her response. He started to stand, then hesitated. There's one more thing. I'm working with a community group that helps people returning from prison. Job training, housing assistance, that sort of thing. Andre Taylor's name came up on our list. He pulled a business card from his pocket and placed it on the bench between them. If he's interested, tell him to call. No pressure. And he doesn't need to know it came from me. Tanya picked up the card, surprised by the gesture. I'll pass it along, she said. It will be his choice. Of course, Lawson stood. Thank you for hearing me out. As he walked away, Tanya wondered about the long, complicated path of accountability and redemption. Lawson was trying to rebuild his life by helping others. Was it enough? Could it ever be enough to balance the harm he'd done? Perhaps that wasn't for her to decide. The next day, Tanya called Rivera. "I'll take the position," she told him, "but I have some ideas about how the team should work." "I'm listening," Rivera said. "We need to include community voices from the beginning, people who've been affected by police misconduct. And we need to create pathways for good officers to report problems without fear of retaliation." "Ambitious," Rivera commented, "but doable." 2 weeks later, Tanya found herself standing at a podium in the Oakwood Police Academy, facing a room full of cadets. Chief Thompson had invited her to speak about the FBI's new civil rights enforcement team and the lessons learned from the investigation. "The badge is a symbol of trust," she told the solemn-faced recruits. "When that trust is broken, it damages the relationship between police and the communities they serve. Sometimes irreparably." She paused, looking out at the young faces. "But trust can be rebuilt. It starts with accountability, with the courage to admit mistakes and the commitment to do better, with understanding that protecting and serving means protecting and serving everyone, regardless of their race, background, or neighborhood." In the back of the room, she spotted a familiar face. Thomas Lawson stood quietly, listening to her words. Next to him was Andre Taylor, who had agreed to share his story with the cadets as part of their training. Life took strange turns, Tanya reflected. 6 months ago, she had been pulled over by a biased officer who couldn't see past her skin color. Now she was helping reshape police training across the region. The changes wouldn't happen overnight. Old habits and entrenched biases wouldn't disappear with one investigation or one new training program. But as she looked at the earnest faces of the cadets before her, Tanya allowed herself to feel something that had been in short supply lately: hope. "Your job will be difficult," she continued. "You'll face danger, stress, and split-second decisions. But remember this: the greatest officers are not those with the most arrests or the most dramatic stories. The greatest officers are those who make their communities feel safer just by their presence, who build trust daily through their actions, who see the humanity in every person they encounter." After her speech, as cadets approached with questions, Tanya caught sight of Chief Thompson watching from the doorway. He gave her a small nod of respect, one professional to another, across the divide that had once seemed unbridgeable. It wasn't a perfect ending. There were still officers who resented her, still cases to be reviewed, still reforms to implement. But it was a beginning, and sometimes Tanya thought that was enough.